This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is David Ramadan, and David is a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. David, welcome to the show, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Frank.
Now,
Good to be here.
As I understand, you're an immigrant to this country. As I understand, you're a business person. So I want you to tell me a little bit about your background, and then tell me what made you to enter the public service and serve our community.
It's good to be on the show, Frank. I am an immigrant. I was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon, and grew up in the midst of a devastating civil war. Came here chasing the American dream. Went to George Mason.
Have you realized the American dream so well? You crossed the ocean to achieve the American dream.
Yes, I have. I came here. I made Virginia home. I went to George Mason University, did my undergrad there, did my grad there, served on the board of George Mason, taught at George Mason, started my own company, and life has been good. The Commonwealth has been good, life has been good, immigrated my entire family, opened my own business, and been very successful at it.
What kind of business were you
I do international franchising.
Okay.
Got a small consulting firm. And decided that the way to pay back this great country and this great Commonwealth that gave me all this opportunity of the American dream was public service. And when a new district...
You want to serve, you have a deep desire to serve our community and a country.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you use the word serve and not just enter the public arena, but the public service, because all of us that are in the public arena today should be seeing it as a service and nothing else.
I subscribe to your notion. So what your accomplishment has been so far working in the General Assembly as a member of the House of Delegate during your first term? What have you learned also?
I learned a lot, I'll tell you. It's a learning process. And even though I was not new to politics...
But this is your first term?
This is the end of my first term, so second year. Just returned back from 60 days in Richmond.
Okay.
And learned a lot from it. Learned how the process worked, learned how to become effective, learned that everything needs to be worked out behind closed doors and work with people across the aisle, worked how to work with people both in the Senate and the House.
Make a lot of compromises.
As long as you don't compromise principle, absolutely.
Well,
you got to find middle ground, but not necessarily compromise principle, and one can be very successful. And I'm very happy this year I was able to pass 10 bills altogether.
Tell me a little bit about your bills.
Let's start with Diwali Day. I am very happy that I had passed Diwali Day in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
So that's something about India.
That's something
the
about
celebrations about the lights.
Absolutely. Celebration of light for our Indian community. The last Saturday of every October will be celebrated in the Commonwealth as Diwali Day. I passed a constitutional amendment this year that'll take care of withholding taxes on the properties of the wives or husbands, spouses of our brave men and women that are killed in action. Passed an eminent domain bill that will protect every citizen from government taking their property for less than assessed value. Then I passed several business bills. I've co-founded a caucus that we call the Business Development Caucus. And we went out across the Commonwealth and came up with business solutions for real business problems for small and medium-sized businesses.
What about the school safety? I thought you have been instrumental in passing some of those bills.
I was very happy and honored to be asked by the governor to carry one out of 5 bills that the Commission on School Safety that the governor had put together had recommended. And collectively, those 5 bills had created a fund that will increase improvements in school safety, that will increase officers around the Commonwealth, and that will have a cooperation and a process for principals to do early intervention and be able to identify any threats with the threat assessment teams that we're going to create so that we can have safer school for our children in the Commonwealth.
Let's talk about creating jobs, which is a very important in this part of the region, especially Northern Virginia. 40% of the 40% economy is pretty much dependent on the federal spending. So the question is, what effect the sequestration will have? And would it be a soft landing or a crash?
I think it'll be a soft landing. However, for the Commonwealth overall,
it'll be able to.
We will see.
Withhold the shocks.
Depending on how they apply it.
Okay.
And then, however, we will see in Northern Virginia a bigger effect on sequestration than the rest of the state.
Because of what? Because of the
because of the high number of federal workers that are in this area.
Especially the Pentagon.
Absolutely. And they will see that in Southeast Virginia as well because of the high number of the military that we have in Virginia Beach area, the Tidewater area. We have made several. We have a great delegation to Congress. We have 11 congressmen from Virginia, 2 senators. 9 out of those 11 are from my party. And we have communicated
what's your
with them,
party?
and that's the Republican Party.
Okay.
We have 9 Republican congressmen and 2 Democrat congressmen, and then 2 Democrat senators from Virginia that represent us in D.C. Put party aside, they've all been working together on trying to avoid.
But the sequestration is going to take an effect.
It will take an effect.
It's not going to go away. The president signed the bill.
Absolutely.
Obviously, whether you blame the president or the administration, the Democrat and Republican, however, it's going to take an effect. The question is now, what Northern Virginia, in terms of what Virginia is going to do to make sure the sequestration has a minimal impact. But remember that your economy is a little bit diversified as well. You only depend on 40% federal spending, according to my estimate. So 60% is into the high technology area, and especially in cybersecurity and also the telecommunication industry, the biotechnology area, which is the Maryland. So and hospitality, which is the Hilton is a good example. So tell me a little bit about what do you need to do to make sure that you can spur economic growth without being dependent on federal spending
As you mentioned, Frank, we are the Silicon Valley of the East Coast here in Northern Virginia.
Do you want to be Silicon Valley?
No, not necessarily, but that's what they call us.
Okay.
However, we do want to be the hub for technology and communication. And that hub gives us an advantage of not being totally dependent on federal government economy. Further, our southern parts of the state are still very vibrant economic centers due to their agriculture and coal products. What we need to do in Virginia is continue on the path that Governor McDonnell set 4 years ago, which is to keep Virginia the most business friendly. We want small, medium, and large businesses to be able to set up in the state, be able to pay their taxes to the state, but not overburden them with those tax rates, and be able to have a friendly labor laws that allows everybody to work.
What about the regulation? Roll back some of the regulations?
We've rolled back quite a bit within the state. We continue to do so, and as long as we keep it a right-to-work state, where I can hire employees and they can work for me freely without any restrictions, we will be in good shape.
So let's talk a little bit about the fact that a lot of people are talking about reforming the tax code in Virginia. What's your thoughts on that? And my pet question to every member that I talk to is about gun control. It has taken thousands of people's lives. So what is your thoughts on those two topics?
Let's start with tax reform. I have talked about tax reform in my first campaign 2 years ago, continue to do so. I believe we have a tax system that is fine, but it's not the best tax system we can have.
So you're going to get rid of some of the tax loophole also?
Absolutely. That's what we talk about tax reform. We put everything on the table, and then we look at what are the priorities for government today, and we fund priorities today. You can't keep a system that is applying priorities of the 1900s or the priorities of even 2000, 13 years ago.
It is important, whatever you do, to make sure there's incentive for the business community to spur economic growth.
Absolutely.
And make sure that you can access the capital, which is very important for small
Absolutely.
business. So I want you to get a little bit of your thoughts on that.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean to.
Part of tax reform is making sure there's enough cash left for businesses to operate. We have a lot of programs that we implemented in the state of Virginia. The governor implemented. We have the Governor's Opportunity Fund that makes a limited amount of money available for new industries to come in. We recently incentivized the filming industry to come into Virginia. And as you know, Spielberg came in and taped the movie Lincoln in the house in Richmond.
I did not know that.
When you watch the movie Lincoln and you see all of those scenes, those are not from Congress. They seem to be Congress, but that's actually the Virginia House of Delegates.
Hey, Virginia is which is where our Constitution started. This is the center of the democracy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So our first settler came in 1632.
Absolutely. We had Madison, Patrick Henry, Jefferson, Washington.
List goes
they
on.
all came out of here. The list goes on. And an immigrant today has the same honor and privilege to serve in the same house that Jefferson built for all of us.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is. Only in America.
And follow in the footsteps and set a positive example for you as an immigrant, so that you can inspire others.
Only in America. Only in America.
So your story and my story can only happen in America.
Absolutely.
And it reaffirms the notion.
Absolutely.
It reaffirms the notion that anything can happen in America, and America is indeed a land of opportunity. So let's talk about traffic congestion and transportation
Sure.
problems in Northern Virginia.
Sure.
Everybody's hot topic.
Uh-huh.
You
It
can
is.
sit there on the Beltway. It could take forever to
Absolutely.
get one place to place A to place B. Tell me a little bit about it. What's
We-
going on with transportation bill?
We all know that we need to put more money into transportation. Nobody disagrees on that. Question is how much money, where does the money come from? We have one pot of money, and as I said, part of tax reform is that we need to be able to reprioritize our spending. And today, we don't put enough money from the core tax income that comes to the state into transportation. And what we need to do is that we need to all come together on the same table, divide this pie, and put more and more money in transportation without increases taxes.
So
I opposed the recent tax increase that came in for transportation. I did not believe
So where are
that
you
it
going
was
to get the
fair.
money? What are you going if you're not going to increase the
Sure. For every dollar we have money, it's how do you prioritize?
Okay.
It. For every dollar that we raise in Northern Virginia in taxes that we send to Richmond, only 30 cents gets spent back in
So
Northern Virginia.
what did they do with 70 cents?
Right? The 70 cents goes to the rest of the state.
Okay.
And we need to keep more of that share in here, right? So that's very important.
want your
to do.
share?
I want my fair share.
Yes.
This recent tax bill that passed would double that. It says we're going to keep this spending the way it is, we're going to keep this distribution the way it is, but here you go, Northern Virginia. If you want more money for transportation, you go tax more just Northern Virginia, and you keep that money in Northern Virginia. That's not fair. So I fought that on a fairness basis for Northern Virginia, and that's why I disagreed with that recent tax increase that passed. And I believe your next guest is on the same wavelength with me, even though he's on the other side of the aisle. He also opposed that.
Well, we all work for America. We all work for this great state of Commonwealth of Virginia. We have a shared goals, shared responsibility, and shared sacrifices.
Sure do.
And it is important for all of you, regardless of who you are, from which party you belong to, is to advance the cause of Virginia, which is what you're doing, David.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to shift the gear a little bit about burglary. As I understand, there's a lot of burglary going on in your Loudoun County. Tell me a little bit about it.
We do.
What are you working on that? What are you doing about it?
Unfortunately, we have a set of burglaries that took place in eastern Loudoun County and western part of Fairfax that targeted Middle Eastern and Indian families.
Oh, is that right?
It is. And
why is that? Because there are a lot of jewelries?
They know they have gold. They know they have gold.
And they want that gold.
They want that gold. So gold is very valuable nowadays because of the increase in the price of gold. So these houses were broken into. Thank God it was done when there's nobody home, so there's no injuries. And we believe that there's a certain gang that's been doing that. It's my understanding that there was arrest made out of state, not here. The investigation is still going on, so we can't go into details, but there should be good news going on that very soon. However, nobody should put down their guard. They should all remain vigilant and take precautions and measures and put alarm systems in the home, and so that we can protect our homes.
So, what other step have you taken to help improve the law enforcement in Virginia?
I'm incredibly focused on making sure our children are safe, and that includes what we unfortunately have seen in the past in Northern Virginia. Everybody thinks this happens somewhere else, but prostitution and trading with minor children and using them in
You're talking about
child prostitution, trafficking.
Yeah.
We've seen that here. We've seen it in Herndon. We've seen it in Northern Virginia. This year, I introduced laws and I co-sponsored laws that, just like I did last year, that increases the penalties. We want to make sure that our children are safe, our Commonwealth is safe, that there's absolutely no room in Virginia for human trafficking and for abuse of children, whether it's through sexual abuse or any other abuse.
What's your thoughts on gun control?
I am
legislation which is going to happen in the Congress pretty soon.
I do not believe that we need any more gun control. I believe we need more behavioral control. Guns on their own don't act.
So you don't believe in background check and assault weapons?
Background checks are fine.
Okay.
What is assault weapons? That's a definition that is not to be defined.
The definition is that you don't need 50 rifles in the...
Unfortunately, there was an attack in Houston just yesterday with a knife. Right. So are we going to differentiate between assault knife and a regular knife? Are we going to kill all knives and not allow them to be used in laboratories anymore? This is a problem that's more of a behavioral problem. Yeah, but it is a tool problem, and we got to keep it.
If you cannot have possession in your possessions of gun control, you not shoot people. So obviously the mental health is a bigger issue over here. Maybe perhaps we can discuss that some other times because your ideas and ideals are a little bit different than what mine is. However, we have a shared goals to protect our children, to protect our country, and to protect the people in the West, in the state of Virginia.
Without a doubt.
And thank you very much for coming.
Having me,
I really
Frank.
appreciated that very much.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. This is Frank Islam, wishing you a great week.